All right, good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are all having yourselves a fantastic start to the AM here. Happy Tuesday, right? It's Tuesday. Not a good sign that it's only the second day of the trading week, and I'm not quite sure the day of the week it is. That might say more about me than it does anything else. But yeah, guys, let's have ourselves a fantastic or exciting day here today. Definitely want to be a little bit cautious, right? Still, obviously, want to be a little bit patient with this price action, and hopefully, right, we can get a clean narrative day out here at some point today. Like we've been talking about a little bit, right? It has been an incredibly choppy and frustrating market, and man, it fucking sucks, right? There's not really too much else you could say besides that. It doesn't feel great. It's not very fun. But essentially what we can't allow to happen here is for our price action to essentially, trying to get that clock up here, it's for that price action to trick us into making decisions that we know consistently cost us money. Right now, our second most profitable position is not taking trades that aren't A+, right? So basically just avoiding obvious mistakes is our best way of generating pretty significant alpha right now. And I'm not sure if I see anything here in the immediate short term that is going to change that narrative. Now, obviously, if something comes together, if we get good volume profiles, if we see strong PA, then it's easy to start to fall back in love with some of these narratives. But I don't want to front run that price action showing up before either volume profiles do or we get like a personality shift in the market. So a lot of what we've been talking about here in the last, say, 5 or 6 days, we're still looking for essentially a continuation of that same narrative. And I want to be cautious, patient, and really picky, essentially waiting for my A+ setup here this morning. So with that being said, right, let's kind of get after it here a little bit, figure out what we want to do, kind of get on with our day so that we're making just high conviction calls and setups here this morning. So good morning, Suresh, Gary, Ruben, Stephen, sorry, Think Smart, Salstein, Craig, John, Gabe, Igor, and Mike. Hope you guys are all having yourselves a fantastic morning. Hey, Jose. Hope you're having yourselves all a fantastic morning. Hey, Joe. And you guys are having yourselves a great day. You guys have caught me in a loop here, repeating myself a little bit. But first thing, right, we want to go over is economic calendar. So today, a little bit of a busier session with a lot of Fed speakers here today. So if you're looking for a calendar, right, Market Watch, economy-politics-calendar. And we know that today we have factory orders at 10, job openings at 10, Fed speak starting at 10:10, more Fed speak at noon, and then Mary Daly kind of finishes off here in the afternoon at 1:30. And then tomorrow, right, we've got Powell yapping, we've got a bunch of Fed speak going. They're juicing up their speaking fees. So if we are going to get some price action, right, the goal is for us to hopefully get a setup or clean PA prior to these Fed presidents opening up their mouths and starting to screw with sort of the market. So let's start mapping things out here a little bit, figure out our plans, and then go from there. So on the SPY, let's start things out or on the index level. What's the count here? What did we have there yesterday? What are we in play for here today? And does that set up opportunities in one direction or the other? Yeah, let's go from there. Hey, Ricky. Any thoughts, guys? What's the count? Right, so red candle, decreasing volume, pretty punchy gap down. So this is a 2 out of 3 to the downside without a volume narrative. So we're not seeing a very strong indication of trending price action. That means, right, in theory, we could be looking for breakouts or breakdowns in either direction, and we need volume to confirm essentially trending PA. The size now of this gap down or that overnight price action is not an indication that we've had that personality shift here yet, and we still want to make sure that volume confirms any of these narratives before we're willing to be very aggressive. So from myself, right, plan's not really changing compared to what we had there yesterday. I'm looking for an opening range breakout on bigger volume than what I saw on Thursday or Wednesday. And then basically same thing, I'm going to break down, right, bigger volume than what I saw last couple of days. I need to see that momentum show back up. Otherwise, I'm just going to be happy letting this thing grind away and kind of frustrate people while I sit on hands and basically just give my dog belly rubs, right? That is a much more valuable outcome for me than it is to sort of chase price action that I don't think is absolutely perfect. So unless that volume steps in, I'm pretty happy to let this thing just kind of chop about and hang out in sort of this no man's land until I do get a cleaner narrative. So yes, absolutely in play here. We've got some directional opportunities, but we're willing to be flexible with which direction we're willing to trade as long as volume shows up and kind of confirms certain narratives. I would say with the size of this gap down, right, maybe you get like a little bit of a relief bounce type setup here this morning where we see strong bulls stepping in, etc. And then we can maybe, eat this back up towards that 5,300. Yeah, that would make sense, Suresh. It's almost like that rotation. All right, QQQ. I mean, this has been so gross. You're in minimal amounts of range, right, in the last, month or so, right, where you're looking at price action here. It's like 3.5% of range. Not really getting a breakout over, not really getting a breakout under, and that makes it very challenging to have conviction. Now, on an individual basis, right, we've got a red candle, an increasing volume profile, and then a gap down. So in theory, right, QQQ is showing me a little bit more momentum here to the downside, or a slightly better indication that bears could be in control. But I need to ask myself a couple questions, right? One, if that bearish volume was actually as strong as I anticipated, or as I'm kind of seeing here, I should say, why isn't yesterday's candle stronger, right? Yesterday's daily candle about as doji as it can get, right? Closing 5 cents less than what we opened at there yesterday. So not exactly a very good indication that there's really anyone in control here. This just could be like a little bit of a sympathy gap down. So although it is a 3 out of 3 here to the downside, it's a weak 3 out of 3, right? It's giving me reasons to be pessimistic about the quality of this price action. And I want to be cautious, basically not front running this narrative, right? It doesn't feel like a consistent enough story for me here yet to say that I need to be very aggressive, or that yesterday's doji was actually the start of potentially a greater trend. So what I'd like to see here on any breakdown would be bigger volume profile. So if yesterday's volume wasn't strong enough for us to build conviction that bears are in control, then I would need to see both a stronger candle, right, and a stronger volume profile to overcome some of those anxieties that yesterday's price action has now established. So that's really going to be the objective for me here this AM. See if I can create that standard, see if I can see that, incredible volume profile set up. And then if it does, then maybe we do have a little bit of a narrative. Because it is a 3 for 3 here to the downside, I do not have a bull case here this morning. That bull case is still a breakout above that 450, and that's $10 away at this point, so not really in play regardless. But I do need to be a little bit cautious, a little bit skeptical maybe of some of these narratives, and really wait for high conviction PA to show back up before I'm willing to be aggressive. Now, the trend line on this, right, or maybe what we're looking for, has maybe a few, we'll call it stragglers, right? I would say you could call this like a little bit of a trend line. And if that's the case, right, you're looking for then a breakdown under this 438 to then push down towards sort of those next points of contact. So if I could get a really big volume breakdown under that range, lose that trend line, then I could start to say that maybe we have a little bit of an indication of trending price action. But I need to really break down with some conviction and lose things. Yeah, Tesla got the deliveries today, right? So curious to see how that kind of behaves this morning. And then we said 438, right? That's the starting point. Right? So lose that point of contact, and then you kind of go, okay, 437, 436, 433. So I think we can go buck along the way down towards that 433 area. So 437, 436, 435, 434, 433. And then under that shelf, right, I think we can go down towards 430. I would say that would be a nice little breakdown from that trend line. Do I think that that's necessarily going to be the smoothest bit of PA here today? No. I still think that it's a little bit challenging to be super aggressively bearish here yet. But if I see that volume showing up and I see cooperation across the board, well, at that point, I'm going to have very few reasons to ignore basically the narrative. So QQQ looks great. 3 for 3 here to the downside. And you can play this with NQ, whatever you want. But certainly looks like it could be in play. Okay, next. Apple. So if we could lose this one. All right, start with the count here. What's the count? Yeah, 2 out of 3 without volume. What does that remind you guys of? Yeah, exactly, right? Looks a lot like the index level. It looks a lot like the SPY. Weak candle starting to maybe break down. So if SPY is giving us a similar look and Apple is giving us a similar look, what would we need to occur to basically trust a bearish narrative here? Yeah, we want, exactly, Stephen. We want those narratives to be consistent. So if we're seeing the same pre-market narrative on both names, we'd like to see that same post-market open narrative to basically sync up and make sure that we're still consistent. If we're starting to see Apple break down but SPY break out, then maybe our most likely outcome here today ultimately then becomes a chop day, right? Where if you're kind of getting one tug in one direction, one tug in another, sounds like high school all of a sudden, but if that's starting to occur, then maybe we're going to be a little bit confused over what the price action needs to be. So that's going to be the focus, right? Make sure that those stories are consistent and synced up. And then once they are, right, we can really take advantage of whatever price action is available. For a bull case, this is a great place where we could look for Bollinger Band reversals, right? We're going to be at relative lows. And if that volume standard can show back up, right, bigger than Thursday last week, same volume standard that we have established on the SPY, then we could say that bulls are in control. Alternatively, right, if we get that 35 cents of breakdown here this morning and we get that cooperating with an impressive volume standard, again, bigger than Thursday, then I think we do have some space down towards maybe that 165, 160 area here, kind of following kind of a buck along the way, right, or breaking down a buck along the way. So 168.50 goes to a 167.50, a 166, and then a 165. And then from there, we can go dollar along the way down towards sort of that 160 shelf. Again, guys, if we do not see market cooperation here, I will have zero interest in trading this, and I'm going to be, waiting for those narratives to sync up and be perfect prior to entering a trade. Okay, Tesla, mega gap down here. How do you feel? What's the count? Start there. Yeah, 3 out of 3 to the downside. Yeah, the volume is below the moving average, so that is absolutely a fantastic thing to kind of point out, right? Where although we are getting a significant potential trend line breakdown, it doesn't seem like that trend line breakdown is occurring on a volume standard that maybe is telling us that same story. So this gives us reasons to be skeptical, right? That volume is maybe a little bit weaker than we expect, and that candle shape is maybe a little bit weaker than we expect. So although it's a 3 for 3, we could potentially downgrade this to treat this essentially like a 2 out of 3. But I would say that on a fundamental level, we still have a red candle, we still have an increasing volume standard, and we still have a gap down. So I would like to still call this a 3 for 3 instead of a 2 out of 3 to the downside. But, right, if I can overcome that volume standard, this gap down seems to be disproportionate versus all the other pieces of information that Tesla is giving us here so far, right? If yesterday's volume profile was maybe a little bit weaker and yesterday's candle shape was a little bit weaker, this morning's gap down seems disproportionate compared to that information. So I would say that I would have a really challenging time chasing a breakdown here, as leaving that much space behind us feels like a little bit of a gamble. So maybe the best case scenario here is a little bit of like a Bollinger Band reversal scenario, as long as we can establish a volume profile that's not only bigger than yesterday, but preferably back above that outlier standard, so that we could overcome essentially some of that anxiety that that weak volume has shown us. So if I can get that BB reversal on outlier volume, right, that would give me a look. Now, prior to Tesla deliveries, I'm not sure if that's going to be the easiest of setups here for us. Who's going to, well, it doesn't mean it can't, but it might be a little bit challenging to front run this narrative prior to news dropping, right? So that could be a reason for us to be skeptical. But if that volume does show up, it will be impossible to ignore to a certain extent. So let's just make sure that that narrative is strong enough. And then to the downside, challenging. I think I've got easier setups here just because the size of this gap is so big that I'm going to struggle to think that we're going to sustain after a $13 drop, right? I think that's a little bit aggressive. So I'm going to be patient here, look for that BB reversal setup, and then maybe we can get something else. Okay, Microsoft. What's the count? Green candle, decreasing volume, gap down. What does that tell us? So this is a 1 for 3 here, right, to the upside, indicating that we have no trending price action. So yeah, spot on, right? 1 for 3 here, no good indication of a trend. And maybe we're consolidating in the middle of what looks to be a little bit of a wedge. So if we are going to get a breakdown here, or we are going to create trending price action, I would ideally like to see a breakdown through that zone. But Suresh, yeah, exactly like what you're saying here. I do think that this is a little bit of a challenging setup here, because what we're looking for, if we're going to be trading to the downside, which is a little bit closer to sort of being reasonable, is you're looking for a breakdown into a spot where you've just seen basically buyers dominate price action, right? So inside this green area, we've just seen mostly dip buyers kind of be rewarded, and very minimal evidence of sellers being able to sustain any clean PA. So it would need to be an outlier among outliers for me to have conviction that this thing is going to give me that immediate follow through here lower. So what I would say is that although we have a indication of non-trending price action, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical trusting a breakdown here to the downside, because I have no evidence in that immediate range of bears being able to sustain a move lower. So if I'm trying to identify the path of least resistance, I'm not sure if I'm seeing one to the downside here that is immediately obvious, or one that is like unignorable. I think I could talk myself out of this way too easily and focus on other setups to the downside. Now, what that might mean though, right at some point, is that if we get a kind of weak pullback, maybe into that 414 area or even a little bit lower down towards that 400 range, that could ultimately then start to set up as a very logical dip buy opportunity. But maybe we're a few days away from that happening. So yes, Microsoft could be in play here, but I'm going to sit this one out until the story's a little bit smoother. Okay, Meta, higher high, lower low, decreasing volume, gap down. Doji, indecisive PA, probably not the exact reaction one would like on a trend line breakdown. I would say that's a little bit of a red flag. I was going to say red herring. I don't know if there's a difference there. The thing that's catching my eye is maybe a little bit of a non-system play here, but it almost seems like the setup might just be a fake out, right? Play the fake out lower, and then you can maybe play a move higher, or play the fake out higher for a move lower. So if that's what it's telling me, then I'm basically saying this is a chop spot, right? Or this is a spot where I'm not necessarily seeing the cleanest type of PA or the PA that I'd exactly like to see. So I can talk myself out of this. It's a 1 for 3, no indication of trending price action, not a very good reaction on that trend line breakdown. So let's see if we can get that today or tomorrow, or alternatively, right, if we can maybe start to play that fake out in a day or two. Okay, Amazon, higher high, higher low, gapping down, 1 for 3 here. We would need to lose this trend line before I'm willing to be bearish. That would be under 176.50. It's $3 away on Amazon. That's too far away for me to trust a breakdown here this morning. So I want to see a resolution of this trend prior to being aggressive. Hey, Dayon, how you doing? All right, AMD, what's the count? So it's a weak candle shape, right? Least bullish candle, increasing outlier volume, and then a little bit of a gap down. Inside our zone here, right? If we were to drag this box up a little bit, I'm seeing bottom heavy wick, pretty green candle, okay, and then pretty bottom heavy wick inside this area. So I know from like an evidence perspective wise, if I'm being a CSI crime analyst, I've seen a dip buy occur here many times. So it wouldn't be surprising to see both step back up and kind of defend in and around that 180 barrier. Now the problem, right, is how much upside do we actually have, or how much follow through would be reasonable within this context, as it kind of looks like price action has been stuck for 2 weeks, right? It hasn't really moved anywhere inside that time period. So although this looks like it could be setting up pretty nicely as like a Bollinger Band reversal type setup, I want to be careful as I'm not sure how much upside this thing has. So if I do get a look here, right, on this BB reversal, which is like a dip buy scenario, right? A BB reversal breakout here, or so yeah, if we get a BB reversal, I just want to be careful and cautious about not anticipating like $1 million worth of follow through, right? AMD doesn't seem to be in a market that is giving us that sort of price action. So we need to make sure that we have both the appropriate risk reward and realistic targets for me to go towards. So yeah, if we can get that BB reversal back up to 180, probably gonna be going $1 or $2 along the way to kind of map this thing out. But it is in play. Again, if I get good market cooperation, yeah, it could be in play. But I'm not like it. This candle gives me reasons to think that it could be slowing down a little bit. And I don't want to get trapped, right, in that play. So yes, could be there. Could be a clean story here. But we need to make sure that we are getting essentially confirmation, right, of those narratives before we're willing to be aggressive. All right, NVIDIA. This is a little bit more of a no from me, dog, right? A Randy Jackson type trade. Reminds me a lot of Meta, where it's a kind of doji looking bar, kind of at a trend line spot, not really a very clean indication of kind of trending price action, and no real separation or kind of a breakout away from that 900 zone. So I'd like to see if we can either get a deeper pullback so we could do that dip buy like we are talking about with AMD, maybe around that 850 to 860 area, or right, we can get a resolution and breakdown where we have a strong indication of trending price action. So NVIDIA is going to be one to watch versus one to trade here today, and not a name that I'm particularly interested in. If I do get a look, I think I've got a clean setup in AMD, or cleaner setup in AMD. Okay, Netflix, inside bar, decreasing volume, gap down, maybe a little bit of a trend line breakdown, but opening up in the middle of that candle's range. So if we're going to be bearish, right, we need to get a breakdown under 601. We'll round that down to 600. And if we're going to be bullish, right, need to get a breakout above 616. So I'm kind of in the middle of no man's land here, right? I got to go 1 or 2% for a breakout higher, and I got to move 1 or 2% for a breakdown lower. So Netflix is setting up more as an opportunity that could be tradable in a day or two versus an opportunity that is immediately tradable here today. Okay, Google, what's the count? Trendline breakout, increasing outlier volume, big gap down that's testing previous areas of resistance. So are we saying that we have a breakout scenario, a dip buy scenario? What are we sort of looking for here this morning? Yeah, it's a dip buy opportunity, right? So that's really the main difference between a 2 out of 3 with volume and a 3 for 3, right? A 2 out of 3 with volume means that we have a gap down, which is a better indication that we maybe are a little bit more likely to get that dip buy scenario versus a breakout scenario. Now, logically, our areas where we'd anticipate bulls to step in and defend would be the previous points of contact on that trend line. So about that 150, I was going to say 500. About that 153 area, 152.50, 152, I'd say even down towards 150 could continue to be a reasonable area. And then if we are going to get a breakout, right, it'd have to be above 156, which we already have mapped out towards 160. So it's a wedge breakout or a retest / continuation. That retest could be like a consolidation off of a moving average, off of VWAP, off of a midline on the Bollinger Bands, off of a trend line, right? Whatever it might be. So there's definitely a good indication that we could see a little bit of support here. But again, need to fall in love with the volume, need to fall in love with the price action, and then we can kind of go from there. VIX is a little bit higher this morning, right at 14.67. So that extra potential volatility could create some enthusiasm for us to have some joy with. But to say it's a high volatility environment with the VIX at these levels is maybe a little bit naive or a little bit aggressive. So not to say that we can't get clean price action here today. We absolutely could, and we absolutely could get nice PA. But I am very, skeptical that I'm going to get something perfect until those volume profiles basically just like spit in my face. So this morning, right, I can look at ES in either directions, right? QQQ to the downside, Apple in either directions, Tesla higher, AMD higher, and Google higher, right? So sort of not the world's greatest watch list, I would say, here this morning, right? We need a lot of information to sort of sync up and become a little bit more consistent. And I'm not sure if we are going to get that cooperation here yet this morning. Fed speakers might want to just chop us out, kind of get their speaking fees jacked up, and then maybe we'll get some clean price action. But we're going to be patient, cautious, and it's open, right, to clean PA. So let's see if we can get some nice stories. Let's see if we can get some nice volume profiles, and then we can kind of hopefully go from there. So that's market open, guys. Hopefully we're setting ourselves up for a strong and successful trading day. And yeah, we'll see if price action sort of comes together. So everyone who's listening in on Twitter Spaces, thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. And we'll do another little pre-market rundown here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Otherwise, guys, best of luck. Have yourselves great trading days. And please be very cautious until you see a clear resolution of this choppy price action. That resolution will be accompanied by fuck you volume or just like really aggressive volume. So don't front run that showing up. Wait till it's actually there, and then when it is, you can have yourselves a little bit of joy. So best of luck out there, guys. Happy hunting, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. All right, everyone else, DTR members, right? Let's get ourselves set up for what should hopefully be a good trading day. We'll see how busy it is. I'm not quite sure where that momentum is going to show up. Not quite sure how much enthusiasm we can expect here. But at some point, right, it's got to come together. At some point, right, we got to start to see some sort of indication of clean PA. So my objective or my dream here this morning is for that to occur, for us to get that nice action. And then hopefully, right, we can kind of start making a few dollars here and start, living the good life again. But what I can't allow to happen, right, is for a boring market to trick me into doing something that I don't think actually gives me an edge, right? So although we could have some clean PA or looks like we might have some big gap downs, and it should be really exciting, I don't want to fall in love with price action until volume narratives confirm that we have kind of that enthusiasm showing back up, right? Low volume grinding PA, either drifting higher or drifting lower. It's not one that I have a great edge on, and I'm not going to basically, cut myself up, right? Trading something that isn't absolutely perfect. So unless those narratives are willing to sync up, be consistent, and kind of give me reasons to fall back in love, I'm going to be, I'm going to have trust issues, I think is a great way of describing it, right? So let's see how things come together here this morning. Let's see where those narratives show up. And then if we have some joy, we'll have some joy. If not, I'll be okay sitting on hand. So, hopefully that makes sense, guys. We'll see how the day sort of shows up or comes together for us here. Make sense? Hey, D-Wayne, how you doing? Okay, a little AMD fake out lower. So 4-point range on the opening 5 minutes, not huge. Okay, not great volume on Apple, right? Pretty weak for the opening 5 minutes. It's Tesla. Tesla's pretty weak too so far. Better volume, but a pretty punchy gap down. So I'm not super interested in this yet. Meta hanging out. Being patient here, team. God. So frustrating sometimes. It's very difficult trading sometimes because no matter what we try, P&L is always a lagging indicator, right? Always. And how long that leg decides to want to basically torture us is, it feels like it can never end sometimes. Ooh, so the Tesla deliveries estimate was pretty bad. Q1, 386, 800, so almost 387,000 deliveries versus an estimated, almost anticipated, I should say, 449,000. So it's a pretty punchy drop. Big breakdown here is not the narrative I'm super interested in, right? Chasing that, it's too extended for me. So if we are going to get downside stories, right, rather focus on the ES, rather focus on QQQ, right? Rather focus on the names that have less relative drawdown compared to sort of Tesla. That would just be the easier risk reward, right? I don't want to chase the name that's necessarily the most extended lower. I want to chase maybe not even the right word, but I want to play the name, right, that is giving me the best risk reward lower. Once we have that big downside gap down, feels like a lot of that move could potentially happen there. Doesn't mean the entire move, doesn't mean everything, but it just gives me reasons to be pessimistic that we have easy follow through. Still no alerts, right? We had no alerts yesterday pop off, I don't think. Or we had one pop off yesterday. So we do need to remain patient. I don't see reasons to be very, very aggressive here yet, unfortunately. One day. Seems like the indicator is working a little bit better. The pre-market prep system's working a little bit better here. Right, that gray should indicate a 2 out of 3 without volume. Right, so bearish 2 out of 3 without volume. That was the pre-market prep that we analyzed. So it is showing us the right combo. That's good. What do you mean by that, Craig? What do you mean? Like, how do you get it to show up? So if we go in here, it's basically this. So it's this opening range box, and then there's a label in it that tells you the difference between that. So if you want to see the box, right, you go into your DTR ORB, settings, style, down at the very bottom, right, there's boxes and labels, tick box, right, and then it'll show you. So right now I just unticked it, right, so you go back, tick boxes, and now you have that information. Okay, there's Apple. So start to map this out, right? We got a minute or so until this candle closes to see if we get confirmation. Stop loss would have to be 168.60-ish. Right? Target in this context, we're looking for a breakdown under 168.50, targeting 167.50. Just about here. So then, right, we need to see a strong confirmation close, but we know that a perfect entry would occur around 168.39 or higher. Now, this is not a good enough confirmation candle. We need to see this close as a normal body bearish candle at the very least. But if this volume profile is strong enough, it could be in play. So that could be your little failed breakout scenario. Okay, immediate higher high before pulling back to entry zone. So I'm going to look for a BB reversal. I'm going to wait to see if I can get it on a 10-min time frame here. Right, target would have to be high of day. I'm not sure if the midline is the most realistic option. You're going to get stuck at high of day. Or you'd expect to see resistance at high of day. So you're not guaranteed to get stuck. $9.45, not great. $0.05. Man, that's cruel. Ooh. Okay, now 10 min confirmation, right? Not a strong enough volume profile, although that is a strong looking candle shape. You guys seeing anything here that's interesting? Anything catching your eyes? Man, I don't know. I'm yawning so much here. Sorry, guys. Boring price action. I don't think I could justify that. At least not yet. Maybe if it was on like the 10 min, a little bit easier, but a 3 min reversal signal, it's tough to fall in love with. You too, D-Way. Oh, sorry, mate. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Time 9:56. So we got to be careful here, right? Because we have 10 a.m. data. So we do not want to jump into this too aggressively here yet, because there's a good chance in the next 4 minutes or so, right, we get a little bit of some like a shake and bake, right? You know, it shakes everyone out, and then you can kind of blast forward. So I'm curious to see if that's basically the setup that does come together. We possibly have a reversal setup here coming together, but I'm not super confident that these lows are going to hold prior to 2 data points right at 10. So I'm going to watch basically this reaction here. If I can get a really aggressive or like kind of a weak fake out, I should say, lower, then that could be a really good aggressive entry for a move back up towards maybe even the midpoint of sort of this range, the upper, sorry, the lows or even the highs. So I would say that that maybe is the best setup trigger here I have at the moment, albeit it's a loose term. So I want to see how we react to that 4 a.m. data. Sorry, 10 a.m. data. What's going on with me here? And then we can see if there's a clean story. Ah, yeah, I gotcha. Is that like that, Joe? Is that good? Should be like here or somewhere. Okay, so it would have to be stop loss, right? 52.38.50. Yeah, no worries, man. I use it a lot too. If I got to edit something up or whatever, it's impossible. Well, not impossible, but such a pain in the ass to find trades without the timestamps. All right, so entry have to be under 52.42. Stop loss 52.38.50. Go 52.38. So let's see here. See what this 10 a.m. data looks like. Okay, so watching closely here. Okay, yeah, there's that algo. Here we go. Watch the pull back in. A little bit more here. Wait a sec, guys. Wait a sec. All right, guys. I am in. Average price, 52.41.50. Stop loss at low of day. So far, so good here, team. So far, so good. First scale out's going to be 52.45.50. So about a point away here. I mean, that felt great, right? Pretty much a perfect entry. Didn't spend any time in the red here. So I'd like to be able to get to that risk-free point, right? So we can start to scale out and have some basically insurance. And I'll close a quarter of my position, guys, at that level, right? All right, there we go, guys. Took a little bit off there at 52.46.50. Oh, fuck, that feels so good. All right, next target here, guys, right, is going to be the high, or sorry, the low of this opening range, about 52.50. So 2 points away here. Awesome trading, guys. Awesome trading here. 1 point away. And at that point, right, I'm going to push my stop loss to my entry price and be in entry protection mode. Oh, fuck. I love it when a plan comes together. What a relief. I swear, you guys see the weirdest side of me. All right. Come on, come on. Okay, almost there, guys. Almost there. All right, took a little bit more off, guys. 52.50. I got half of my position left. And guys, this is an awesome rip here so far, right? This is an awesome rip. We're almost up 10 points, right, in less than 3 minutes. So, holy fuck, guys. Like, this is an awesome trade, right? So stop loss now at my entry price. I'll call it a little bit above. I'll say stop loss 51.43. Let's go. Oh, let's go. It feels so good. Oh. Anyone else in this here with me? Guys, next target's going to be high of day. And then final target would be that 52.66. Oh, also like the reason I keep feeling like such a relief, right, is last week we took some paper cuts, right? Couple 2-point losses, one trade, you make it all back, right? So if we focus and obsess and like literally crave losing small, then that relief of like it's delayed gratification, right? Like if this trade feels good because last week I avoided max pain. So although last week was incredibly frustrating, it would have been worse if I was like more stubborn than I was, right? Being able to keep those losers small has made it really easy for me today to either, well, not only make back that money, right, pretty easily, but to have like that now easy path forward for like a huge win, right? So we always talk about control the variables you can't control, obsess over those details, all those sort of things. And this is a really good example of that trade coming together. So hopefully a few of you guys were able to catch this here with me too. Are up, hopefully up a few points, closed off a good chunk of your position at this point, and are hoping that we can get this thing to, keep pushing higher. Like I said, stop loss on my remaining half is at 52.43. I'm hopeful I don't get stopped out here, but you never know. But good process, guys, right? Entry was almost perfect. We didn't spend any time in the red on this trade, which again, different to what we experienced last week. So yeah, I feel like we did this pretty well here. I don't think I have many complaints about this. I'll have complaints if it doesn't give me the follow through I'm craving, but that's just me being greedy, right? God, I love this job. Anyone catch this, guys? Anyone catch this with me? Still in. Nice, Gabe. All right, guys, I just got stopped out. Oh, felt so good. What a relief, guys. What a relief. Oh, man, I got stopped out by a quarter. That fucking sucks. But great win, guys. Great win. So not bad here at all. Yeah, not bad at all, guys. That was awesome. Which direction, Gary? Nice. Awesome, Gary. Awesome. Yeah, I think so too, Rusty. If we get a little bit less chop, that probably ultimately ends up being a winner. That's, yeah, 20 points like you're saying. Could be getting a weak pullback here for another re-entry if you're interested. I'd probably wait for a deeper pullback, though. I'm not sure if that's the risk profile I'd like, personally. Because it's a fake out on the 10, right? I would say that that's maybe more the concern. Well, I'll take that, guys. I'll take that. Across a couple accounts, right? I think I had like close to 30 contracts on that. So 30 contracts times 8 points. Life is good. Yeah. You gotta say, guys, the math with scaling with Apex is freaking unbelievable. I love it so much. All right. Did a good call positioning ourselves here well. Oh, here's a question for you guys. So, in my P&L tracking spreadsheet, when I'm taking futures trades, do you guys want me to be marking the P&L per account or my combined P&L? So P&L per account here would be like 3K. Combined would be like 9. Okay, all right. Okay. What I'll do is I'll track both. Maybe I'll make a separate spreadsheet for it, where I can track both cleanly. Oh. Man, one thing, I'm just thinking about this right now, is how much easier it is to not be emotionally attached to your position, that like you can get awesome action here. Like when your entry is perfect, you'll lose that emotional attachment, right? Because it hasn't worked against you, hasn't like made you anxious, whatever it is. And then when it stops you out and then it breaks down, it doesn't feel bad, right? Like it actually feels kind of good that you did everything right, squeezed the most out of that move, and then, yeah, you know, again, if I maybe spent 10 minutes in drawdown before it gets stopped out, that's a much harder stop loss to accept. Yeah, no, that's fair, Joe. Okay, yeah, I'll do it per account. And then maybe I'll keep a note of how many accounts I have. So maybe I can add another column where it says, like beside post size, right? It says, okay, full, 2/3, whatever it might be. And then the next column I can do prior to the P&L, I can do a number of copied accounts traded. And then you can use that as a multiplier to figure out what the number would be. But for the P&L calculation, guys, right, that's going to be across all accounts. Does that make sense? Yeah, does that make sense, guys? Make sense? Oh, how do you guys feel about that trade? I mean, all things considered though, Gary, right? You did pretty well adjusting to play a similar type setup on a different ticker. So yeah, missed that one, but you did pretty well finding the next. What do you think about the previous 3 trades? I guess created that emotional baggage. Good, good. It's been a while. It's been a while. Oh. Yeah, I hear you, Gary. Man, I get it. I feel the same, right? There's a really frustrating part of trading where, yeah, like you can do everything right and still lose money. And it sucks because we often, and this is definitely a flaw of mine, right? But my mood, my life, it gets impacted by how well I trade, right? It gets impacted by my P&L. As much as I work hard and bust my ass off so that it isn't a contributing factor to how I trade or the decisions that I make. I mean, I'd be bullshitting you guys, right, if I didn't say that last weekend on Thursday night after a horrific week of trading, or like a really tough week of trading, when I did anything that I hated myself for. But like all I wanted was junk food, a bottle of wine, and for people to leave me the fuck alone, right? So it's not that we're always gonna feel like this is a super smooth job. This shit is fucking hard, and it will impact your mood. Okay, yeah, like it just does. I can't pretend it doesn't. But yeah, I still have to have like a certain level of insanity to trust my system, even when it literally screws me over. And so it's like a stubbornness to follow my plan versus a willingness to feel sorry for myself. Yeah, Gary, I don't think you feel sorry for yourself. I don't think that's what it is. But it's like I just don't want to let those emotions creep in and like then influence. So I think the hardest thing to do consistently as a trader is to be like that steady hand, when things around you are fundamentally unsteady. That's really, really hard to wrap your head around and to do that consistently. And it is not something that I am perfect at. Today it was easy because it's been 6 days, right, since I placed a trade. So, if that's the case, it's much easier to sustain and trust, right, that I can get nice PA. Because like the memory of that pain, the half-life, right, kind of, well, the half-life gets cut the more bottles of wine I drink. Let's put it that way. All right, better. Oh. Like all things considered, guys, a net 4.5 point win. Not the world's greatest move, right? Not the world's greatest move at all. But you got a little bit more than one arm across 3 accounts. I'll take that. I'll take that for sure all day long. Yes, sir, Rusty. Yes, sir. So 2 of them are live. 1 is still sim. But yeah. I'm trying to get to 20. So to be honest, guys, I'm doing it pretty aggressive, right? To be honest, Rusty, yeah, it's power hour, right? I'm trying to find setups that give me basically just like 50-50 odds, right? Like, for lack of a better term, I'm pretty willing to go full port on my funded account because a reset costs me less than a stop loss does, right? So I'm really willing to be very aggressive in, trading kind of fuck you sizing on pseudo setups with these funded accounts just to get them funded and then trading properly once they're funded. Like it's kind of a shitty explanation and maybe not a very good example to set. But yeah, literally a reset cost me $50. So I'm willing to lose $500 to get funded with 1 account. So that means, if I flip a coin 4 times, I don't think I'm going to lose. Like I think I can find a 6 points of direction pretty easily 50% of the time. Now that doesn't work once you're funded, but to get funded, yeah. Like you literally buy 20 contracts and you hope for like a 5-point move. That's what you need to do to get funded. And I'll be happy to do that, 5 times in a row to see if I can do it. That math stops working, right? Once you're live or you have a live account, because when you lose, right, you have to restart, you got to repay everything, you got to do all that kind of stuff. And you got to do the consistency rule, whatever. But now I got to make 4K to get funded on this next account. And boom, right? You'll be flying at that point. Yeah, Abraham, absolutely. So essentially, right, your funded account, doing 250s. Your funded account, when you're trying to get to that funded stage or to get to that live stage, right, the rules that you have to trade with initially are much laxer, right, than when you do get funded. So you can, in theory, if you're willing to risk this kind of capital, you can essentially do all-in coin flips, right, to get funded. Whereas I'm going to go all in on heads. I'm going to go all in on tails. Yeah, Topher, I'll break that down here in a second too. So I can go all in on heads, all in on tails. And if I get that right 1 out of 3 times, then I can get an account funded at a number that I'm pretty happy with, right? For like a 250K account funded with resets plus the kind of like setup fees. I can do that for, I don't know, 500 to 600 bucks. So that's a pretty good like risk reward. Like I'm willing to pay 600 bucks to be able to make 2K in 2 weeks. Like that's pretty much the math, right? And so like that for me is a good enough risk reward to justify that decision. So it's basically okay, once you find a market direction or the market gives you what looks to be a trend day, basically just go, I don't want to encourage you guys to do this because it will build bad habits, right? You cannot trade like this when you're live, but yeah, find a market direction, you find the weak pullback, and you look for continuation in power hour. It's pretty much it, right? And you put less emphasis on the entry timing, and you just go full port, right? Either you get stopped out at your max drawdown or you hit your profit target. It's greasy. It doesn't work for when you're live, but you can get yourself funded in 3 days that way, right? So that's really the objective. As for using the 250K accounts, the point of that is that I want to be able to trade 10 contracts per account per position. So that for me is like kind of the sweet spot that I want to be trading at. The 250s allow me to keep that number while not being like stupid with my risk. So that's why, like I'm trading a third of my max position size approximately when I trade with the 250. And so across the board, I can trade 30 contracts, which is a ton of P&L per tick per point. And I can still stay well within my risk parameters. So that's why I like the 250. Could have maybe gone the 300 and still done the same thing. Maybe have a bit more space. But that's the logic behind it. And the goal is, once you get 10 of those, holy shit, man. Like you're buying 100 contracts at a time. P&L's moving 5K a point. Like I'm going to be called Sir Michael if I keep trading with that kind of sizing, right? So it is unbelievable the amount of leverage you can build up here pretty quick. All right, guys. So my journal entry here, my comments. Awesome 3 and 5 min reversal candle into 10 a.m. data. Data gave me a great pullback into my risk reward zone, and I got great follow through higher. Was green almost right away and felt clear headed the whole time. I got to my 2R level at the low of the opening range, and then price pulled back. No complaints. So feel pretty good about that. I don't think we missed out the bigger move, right? But feel pretty good. Oof. Do those explanations make sense, guys? And Abraham, right? Just to go back to your question a little bit, this is why when you were starting your accounts, this is why I recommended doing it one at a time, right? Get funded with one, treat that one live, etc. And then you can do kind of like basically start paying for your other accounts and your extra leverage with your made profits. Because if you're taking 3 attempts per account and you're buying 10 accounts at once, it just ends up being really expensive all at one go. So that's why I recommend doing it that way. Like I can scale up to trading the size that I want pretty much. Oh, man, guys, the relief of getting a win. Oh my gosh. I feel so good. Nice, Steven. Yeah. I think either option is awesome, right? My funded futures and Apex both have their pros and cons. If you want to keep your trading, maybe not. Phrase it a little bit differently. I think if your goal is to have like okay, I phrase this again differently. Let me find my right words. All right, so my funded futures is awesome because there's no P&L restrictions, right? So if you get one account, you trade 10 contracts on your biggest account that they have there. I think it's 150K. Well, you're going to do pretty well, right? Not very complicated. You're able to take your max payout. You're not going to have any issues. With Apex, you have restrictions on your first couple, on your first 9 payouts, which kind of sucks for sure. But if you have 10 accounts, it doesn't suck, right? Because then you basically have like a 20 grand. You can pull out 20 grand every 2 weeks. And then in 3 months, you can take out 250K. So it's a slightly different game. or reward slightly different preferences, I should say, right? So if your goal, and I think this should be for everyone, right? If your goal, especially when you're joining the DTR program, like I want to see you guys basically double your investment that you made in here, right? If I can get you to do that within, like you're on your first payout, that's pretty awesome. And I think that that's easier to do with a My Funded Futures than it is with Apex, right? But if you're willing to buy 10 accounts and you're willing to scale up your trading over the course of 3 months, then Apex is probably going to pay you more long term. So I would say it's almost like the best combo is make your first 25 grand with My Funded Futures, keep that account going, and then work on scaling things up with Apex. You're still going to be trading through TradingView. You'll still be using Trade-O-Vate. Nothing's going to change from a technical perspective. What I like about Apex as well, Steven, is they have evidence, right, of them literally doing millions of dollars of payouts. So there's a trader that last month made $1 million. I don't think there's any other prop firms that have that level of liquidity. And so from a operator's perspective, they're kind of like the old money in the space, right? Which is good. Like they've seen it all, they've survived it all, they've done it all, and they can pay it out all. So I like that a lot. And I like, and well, the reason why they can pay out so much is because they're clearly booking their traders, right? They wouldn't give you a 3-month restriction unless they were planning on taking the trades that you're taking. They're basically using that period to shake out gamblers and to figure out risk profiles to match the actually profitable traders. So that's why they're, I think, able to consistently make those huge payouts, where I don't think I've seen $1 million get done anywhere else. Now, is that to say that all of us are going to be pulling $1 million in a couple months? I doubt it, but it'd be nice. I mean, if it does, you guys are all buying me drinks, but I don't think that's the most realistic outcome. Now, do I think that over the course of a couple of years, you could pull $1 million out of Apex? Yeah, no problem. But I think as a floor, you probably have a little bit more safety there. Holy shit, Tesla looks gross. Any questions, guys? Any questions about that setup here this morning? Differences between accounts? Anything you guys want to go over? Catching me in a good mood. So happy to answer any questions. Happy to get grilled. Life is good. Ugh. I haven't said this in a while, guys, but who remembers what's happening now? What time is it? Hell yeah, it's breakfast time. Absolutely. Eggs Benny, baby. Do any of you guys consistently ever trade fasted? Yeah, same here, Joe. I don't know how you feel, but for me, it definitely helps me get into my deep work state. Oh, I know. Man, I drink enough coffee that I suppress my appetite for like 10 hours anyway, but 9 a.m. Still pretty early. It's like on Mondays, I like to push myself to be pretty late with when I break it. So like yesterday, all I had was dinner. Oh, okay, yeah, fair, fair. Yeah, 3:30 wake up, Rusty. Damn, you're brave, man. Here I was thinking my 5:30, 6 o'clock wake ups were early. Joe, how's the running going? Nice, that's awesome. Tell you what, like that plain burger is gonna hit nicely. Oh yeah, I don't doubt that. You said what? You lost what? 15 pounds, something like that, right? You were saying like that kind of makes you feel like a whole new human being, right? And like in a month's time, oh man, you're gonna be rapid. That's when it gets fun. Passing like the 20-year-olds running on the seawall or wherever. Well, can't say we missed out on much, eh, guys? Yeah. Dude, that's huge. You should be very proud of yourself. That's really, really well done. And Honestly, I think that kind of discipline translates to trading so well. Like if you have the discipline to basically do the monotonous, boring eating side of things, then you can do the monotonous sitting and waiting for A plus setups. Like it's a cousin of the same skill. Oh man, yeah, that's that's ruthless. But to be fair, like a little, I don't know, some carnitas or like some pulled pork or something, spiced up Mexican style would be damn good. Rusty, I normally say Latinas are my weakness, but Mexicans too. True. I think like the more and more, and it's just a personal philosophy, right? So I don't mean this in any other way besides just for myself. But I think more and more as you get older and older, right, it's harder and harder to be in good shape, but it's maybe a little bit easier to be in good shape financially. And so if you can, when you're, say 30 and above, and you're in like really good shape, I think people take notice of that more so than they do of like a sign of wealth or anything along those lines. And if you can catch people's attention easily, then I think a lot of things open up for you. Like no one really walks into a room at, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but no one walks into a room at 40 with like a Rolex on their wrist and everyone's like impressed, right? But that guy or woman who's, like in incredible shape, or the guy who was like six pack ripped at 40, they definitely command a little bit more attention than like a watch or fancy shoes or a nice suit, whatever it might be. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of billionaires seem to want to get into like crazy shape once they have done enough kind of in the business world. Like a really interesting exercise for everyone. When I was so little story time here before we call it a day, but when I started trading for myself and kind of started working for myself full time, things went pretty well for the first few months, right? And then I've told you guys all before, but then I had kind of like a blow up moment, right? Where I gave back, I don't know, like 50K worth of gains in a couple weeks, right? And what I realized, 100% down, yeah, 100%. What I realized or maybe not, I should say this differently. Once I had that big loss and kind of felt humbled, I felt like, well, I didn't feel very happy. I was pretty freaking miserable. Felt like I was like about to go tail between my legs, right? Go asking for my old job back, whatever it might have been. And I didn't really want to feel that way. Like, it would have been super embarrassing to have to ask for my old job back, do any of those things. And so I didn't want to do that. And so sat there and I was thinking to myself, if I won the lottery, if all my financial worries disappeared, what would I do? So what are the things that I can do that will make me happier or make me better that don't cost me any money? That was essentially the list. So I sat down, thought about Peter and kind of like the things that he was successful at, right? My old boss. Looked at, you know, what Musk was good at, what Bezos was good at, what all these sort of, you know, certain common denominators these individuals had. And I basically wrote down all the skills that I thought that they had that I didn't, or all the characteristics that they had that I didn't, and then ranked them from least expensive to most expensive to get. So the most expensive skill, right, would be to learn essentially, you know, like if I look at Warren Buffett, right, the most expensive skill would be to learn how to have a portfolio exactly like Warren's. And, you know, over the course of a decade, you probably lose millions of dollars potentially, right? So a really expensive skill, I can't really do that immediately. But then if I look at, I don't know, Bezos, for example, right? He got super jacked, so he took care of his fitness. A Zuckerberg, right? He was known as kind of being like an alien until he started doing jiu-jitsu. And then everyone's like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. And so you saw those things, and you saw how it like changed their perception. But that became like the catalyst for me to be like, okay, I can do this. And so that's what got me really into running. And then I lost a fuck ton of weight running. I was like, oh, I look like a twig, so I should probably start putting on some weight and going to the gym. And then that was sort of the foundation, right? And so, like, if you're stuck on something, I think that's a great exercise where you find someone that has the life that you want, and you basically list down the things that they're doing that you're not doing, and then sort it by least expensive to most expensive, and just start doing the least expensive things first. It's almost like, yeah, you can copy trade their life almost, right? And eventually, like, that motivation gets replaced with like the addiction of wanting to keep doing it. And I think that's like when you start to develop the skills that actually cost a lot of money to learn, right? I think that's a great exercise. Like, oh, okay, if I look at Elon Musk, oh, maybe he's more disciplined than me. Okay, so how can I test discipline? Okay, well, set your alarm and you don't hit the snooze button. That's a version of discipline. If I say I'm gonna eat healthy, well, discipline is eating healthy, right? So I can do these sort of things that I'm already doing anyway, but attach that extra little kicker to it to almost like create those calluses for those skills, right? And the more and more of those things I start to stack up, the less and less I felt like I was undeserving of the success that I was trying to accomplish or trying to achieve. So it was almost like the pursuit of those habits was like the confidence creating event. And for full disclosure, like I was at a pretty close to rock bottom point at that point. A lot of things in my personal life had like completely deteriorated. A good friend of mine killed himself. A friend of mine like died from heart failure like within a couple months. And it was incredibly disheartening, right? Like everything felt unfair, and it was like a moment where I could have either pivoted to like the system is built against me and everything is fucked and I don't stand a chance, or it was, okay, how did these guys learn how to beat the system and what can I learn from those guys? Yeah. I think that was like the most pivotal 6 months, maybe 8 months of my life. Things could have gone very differently. So, moral of the story, right? Not too much of a sob story. Everyone's got their traumas. Everyone's got their issues. But the moral of the story is that we're the ones in control over how well things go or how well things don't go. And that starts, I think, with our mindset and the desire to want to get better and the absolute desperation to want those characteristics for yourself. I think that's literally the ultimate creator of change. It's when you're forced to do so. So if you guys ever feel like you're in that situation, or you feel like, fuck man, everything's working against me, there is always things that you can do that don't cost any money, that just require kind of a bit of a grind, that will drag you out of whatever situation you're in. No matter what. No matter what. There's always something we can do, right? And yeah. I think that level of like self-accountability and like that commitment to taking control over your happiness has to happen before the market will reward you. Oh man, many times listen to that one, Joe. Many times. Huberman's been cracking me up here recently because he had like that cheating scandal, right? Where he's like, he got caught doing with 6 phones and 6 things. Well, all of his posts that he's doing recently, he's doing 6 bullet points or 6 steps or like whatever. Like he's just trolling people. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah. I mean, even the Can't Hurt Me book by David Goggins, like listen to that on audiobook. 100%. I would say that was a really big influence. And Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That book for me was the one that 100% changed my life. Because I read that book when I felt like in my lowest. And it humbled me, I think, is a nice way of describing it. Like, fuck, Michael, your problems are so pathetic compared to this. And so, it taught me, right, that I have control over my mindset. And if I can control that, then I can control my outcomes. And yeah, I love Goggins, Joe. I fucking love him. He's a psycho, but he's my kind of psycho. Steven, you don't need to upgrade anything through Trade-O-Vate. So if you sign up through Apex, it'll give you a Trade-O-Vate login. You won't need anything else to that, at least not that I could think of. I've not personally upgraded anything. I've just taken whatever Trade-O-Vate version Apex gave me. Don't give a shit about anything else. Any questions here, guys? Anything you want to go over? Otherwise, pretty close to time for some breakfast here. All right, guys, final call for questions here. Final call for questions. All right, guys, if no final questions, then I'm going to call it here for the day. Oh, man, what a relief, right? What a nice day to be green here. I don't think we left any money on the table, to be honest, guys. We did pretty well catching good price action. So pretty stoked on that. Congratulations to everyone who played this with us. Nice work, everybody. Hopefully this is now the start of a very successful and profitable Q2. Let's keep stacking up the bodies, right? Take control of the variables we can't control, put ourselves in good situations where it's easy to be successful, and we'll keep doing pretty well in our trading. So good job, guys. Feels awesome here today, and stoked a few of you guys had some good days here as well. Same deal like always, right? If you have any questions, hit me up outside of market hours, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, have yourselves a fantastic rest of the afternoon, and I'll catch up with you guys all tomorrow. Peace.